when a famously eccentric doctor and his partner constructed a satanically inspired mansion in rural Georgia in 1977. They named it the Corpsewood Manor. Just 5 years later, this intriguing abode became the scene of a chilling crime, making its ominous name a haunting reality. As we delve into the dark and mysterious story of the Corpsewood Manor, we uncover the gruesome murders that turned it into a true crime destination. This is the strange case of the Corpsewood Manor murders. Dr. Charles Lee Scudder was born on October 6, 1926, in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, USA, to parents Charles Morrison and Eleanor Edith Lee. During the 1940s, he attended Oberlin College, where he participated in the school's drama program and studied music and art. As a young man, he displayed exceptional intelligence and a wide range of interests. Scudder later studied at Loyola University and Loyola's Stritch School of Medicine, earning degrees in zoology, languages, and chemistry, and ultimately obtaining a PhD in pharmacology. At Loyola, he studied under Dr. Alexander Karchmar. Following his graduation, Scudder became the Associate Director of the Institute for Mind, Drugs, and Behavior at Loyola University of Chicago, and served as an Associate Professor of Pharmacology at Loyola's Stritch School of Medicine, balancing roles as both a researcher and instructor. In a later interview, Karchmar described Scudder as a unique and eccentric individual, noting his habits of dyeing his hair in colors like purple and red, and keeping a monkey as a pet. Scudder was also a skilled harp player, and had even been invited to perform with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. According to Dr. Karchmar, Scudder had a deep belief in the unity of the universe and published experimental results on this subject. On September 10, 1946, Scudder married his first wife, Helen Kilbourne Hazlett, in St. Joseph, Berrien, Michigan. Helen, who was born in Chicago, Illinois, had studied with him at Oberlin College. Their marriage eventually ended in divorce. A few years later, in the early 1950s, he married Bortai Bunting, the daughter of British modernist poet Basil Bunting and Marion Culver. Scudder and Bortai had 4 sons together, namely Saul, Gideon, Fenris, and Ahab, before they eventually separated as well. In 1959, Scudder met Joseph Odom and brought him on as his personal assistant and housekeeper. Joseph, known to everyone as Joey, was 12 years younger than Scudder and took on the roles of cook and housekeeper for Dr. Scudder and his sons. They lived together in an aging mansion on Adams Street on Chicago's west side, which Scudder had purchased. The mansion, built in 1904 and designed by a student of Frank Lloyd Wright, was located in a rough neighborhood. Despite this, Scudder enjoyed the mansion's fading grandeur and the ample space it provided for his various hobbies, including collecting antiques, creating his own paintings, playing the harp, caring for 2 large English mastiffs, and engaging in lively correspondence with individuals and institutions, including Anton LaVey. Scudder and Odom were irresistibly drawn to each other and soon became inseparable. Their strong bond would endure for the rest of their lives, despite their differences. Scudder was highly educated and cultured, while Odom was a blue-collar worker who had left school in the 5th grade and had a troubled past with the law. Dr. Scudder wrote about him, saying, "He'd learned far more about the world than I had with all my degrees, and somewhere along the line he'd developed a talent for whipping up meals fit for a king." Odom dreamed of cooking on a wood stove and living a simpler life. Neighbors and visitors to Corpsewood still remembered Odom for his exceptional culinary skills. By the 1970s, Scudder's sons had all grown up and moved out to pursue their own lives. Scudder and Odom, who had been hired in 1959 to help with the children and had since become lovers, continued living in the mansion. However, Dr. Scudder grew disillusioned with his career and weary of the deteriorating neighborhood. On December 17, 1975, after several months of searching for land in the southeast, Dr. Scudder purchased the southeast quarter of Lot 248 in the 6th Land District of Chattooga County, Georgia, from John S. Cooper of Floyd County for $10,500. In 1976, on his 50th birthday, Scudder resigned from Loyola University of Chicago and relocated with his partner, friend, and housekeeper Odom to Chattooga County, Georgia, seeking a simpler lifestyle in the mountains of the Chattahoochee National Forest. He decided to leave his academic position to live off the grid in a rural, self-sustaining environment. Frustrated with the challenges of academic research, he yearned for the tranquility of nature and a degree of isolation. Consequently, he purchased 40 acres of undeveloped mountainous land in rural Georgia. Scudder and Odom arrived at their property during an ice storm, bringing their 2 dogs and whatever they could fit in their jeep and small camper van. As they made their way to the hilltop, they encountered a dead horse blocking the logging trail, which they instantly and jokingly named Dead Horse Road. With no existing living quarters on the property, Scudder purchased a trailer to serve as their temporary home during the construction process, which ultimately took over 2 years. They built a castle-like house of Scudder's own design atop a mountain, naming it Corpsewood Manor, in honor of the appearance of the surrounding trees when they arrived that winter. Scudder dedicated 6 years to building, digging, planting, and nurturing the land that sustained him and his companion. Odom planted a rose garden and enjoyed cooking on a wood stove. Hunters often visited them, enjoying their hospitality. The property included a vineyard, which they utilized as amateur winemakers. They formed friendships with some locals, who brought them fruit to be turned into Dr. Scudder's homemade wine. A wedding was also hosted in the rose garden, with Dr. Scudder playing the harp from the sun deck above the gazebo. In addition to their main residence, Scudder and Odom built a smaller 3-story structure on the property to serve both practical and personal needs. The first floor functioned as a chicken coop, while the second floor was used as a food pantry. The top level, known as the Pink Room, was dedicated entirely to pleasure. Here, the couple indulged in various hedonistic activities and invited others to join them. The parties they hosted in the Pink Room became legendary for their extreme debauchery, with abundant sex and drugs that delighted the regular attendees. However, the scandalous reputation of these gatherings also attracted attention from curious outsiders. While the Pink Room allowed for unrestricted indulgence, inappropriate behavior was strictly forbidden inside the manor. To Scudder and Odom, their living area was a home, not a place of immorality. This rule applied to both guests and themselves. They kept their hedonistic activities separate from their domestic life. An unspoken boundary had been established early in their relationship, which they both respected. In the Pink Room, they could freely indulge without fear of consequences. Although most community members chose to mind their own business, the more religious locals began spreading rumors that the mild-mannered newcomers were actually devil worshippers. Scudder continued his artistic pursuits, painting and crafting stained glass pieces for the windows of the house. Among his creations was a stained glass Baphomet sigil, a symbol associated with the Church of Satan. His interest in the occult was evident in the pentagrams painted on his black Jeep and in the catalogues and books found in the house. While Scudder openly embraced Satanism, Odom, in contrast, claimed to be Catholic. Scudder made no effort to conceal his religious affiliations and even discussed his involvement with the Church of Satan openly, despite potential consequences. To further express his interests, he adorned Corpsewood with stone gargoyles and commissioned a bed headboard featuring a demon's face carved into the wood. Despite his outward appearances, Scudder was not a devil worshipper. Rather, he believed in enjoying earthly pleasures without succumbing to guilt. Those who knew him well attested to his kindness, stating that he wouldn't harm a fly. If anything, his sin was his refusal to let others dictate his actions or beliefs. However, even those disposed towards Scudder and Odom eventually began to label them as the homosexual devil worshippers. Despite this negative characterization, many locals still visited Corpsewood to admire the progress of its cautious conviviality. Life at Corpsewood, while mostly enjoyable, had its challenges. Scudder gradually realized that self-reliance came with its own set of drawbacks. On particularly difficult days, he found himself longing for the simplicity of a time when others handled life's problems. Yet, when these moments of despair subsided, Scudder would look around at everything he and Odom had accomplished, and a sense of contentment would wash over him. On December 12, 1982, the life that Scudder and Odom had so carefully crafted was shattered when Tony West and Avery Brock, accompanied by their friends Joey Wells and Teresa Hudgens, visited Corpsewood Manor. Tony and Avery believed that Scudder was secretly wealthy and that the manor held valuable treasures. They planned to eliminate Scudder and Odom so they could take over the property. Upon arrival, the group of 4 went up the 3rd floor of the chicken house referred to as the Pink Room and joined Scudder. They drank wine and sniffed a concoction made of varnish, paint thinner and other substances in a plastic bag. Odom, who had looked forward to a quiet evening at home, had opted not to participate. Instead of joining in the activities, he had stayed in the main house with the dogs. Although Brock had visited the house several times before and had planned to rob it with West while Wells and Hudgens acted as lookouts, their plans quickly turned disastrous. After about an hour of casual conversation, Brock made an excuse to leave, claiming he had forgotten something in his truck. Meanwhile, West, Wells, and Hudgens kept Scudder occupied. Brock returned with a rifle he had retrieved from his truck, holding it tightly. Upon re-entering the house, Brock cornered Odom and fatally shot him in the chest at close range. He then searched for the dogs and found them asleep by the wood stove, where he killed them as well. Returning to the pink room, Brock made no attempt to conceal the rifle as he rejoined the others. Despite being heavily intoxicated, Scudder noticed the weapon and jokingly said, "Bang, bang," before turning away from the drug-fueled party. A few minutes later, Brock and West forcefully lifted Scudder to his feet, making it clear to him that the situation was actually serious. They escorted him to the main residence. Meanwhile, Wells and Hudgens attempted to leave out of fear, seeking refuge in the safety of the truck. However, West ordered them to return. The two young men, whom Scudder had considered friends, took a cruel pleasure in revealing the lifeless bodies of Odom and the dogs to him. Once they believed Scudder was sufficiently shocked into sobriety, they sat him down on a chair, bound his hands and feet, and demanded to know where he kept his money. Scudder explained that he had invested all his funds into the manor and insisted there were no hidden riches on the property. However, they weren't buying that, and they were not about to give up easily either. In a sudden move, Scudder rose from his chair and began to shuffle toward Odom's lifeless body, while Brock and West argued about their next steps. West commanded Scudder to sit back down, but Scudder continued his aimless murmuring, determined to reach his partner's side. Seeing this, West seized the rifle and aimed it directly at Scudder, the man whose life they had just shattered. Just as West was about to pull the trigger, Scudder suddenly became completely lucid. Facing his assailant, he calmly uttered, "I asked for this." Unaffected by the eerie confession, West fired 5 shots into Scudder's face. With their only guide to the supposed treasure gone, the pair ransacked the house in search of valuables. They even attempted to steal Scudder's harp, but found it too large to fit in their vehicle. Having betrayed the homeowner's trust and committed cold-blooded murder, they left with scarcely more than they possessed upon arrival. Wells and Hudgens, traumatized by the events, went into hiding, while Brock and West fled to Mississippi. There they committed another murder during a carjacking 3 days later, targeting a Navy officer on his way home for Christmas. They stole his car, clothes, and what little cash he had. On December 14th, Raymond Williams, a friend of Scudder, visited Corpsewood Manor to deliver news of a mutual acquaintance's passing in a neighboring town. Receiving no response, he entered the residence and discovered gunshot damage at the door. Concerned, Raymond descended the mountain and went to notify the authorities. Coincidentally, on the same day that the bodies of Scudder and Odom were discovered, Teresa Hudgens voluntarily went to the police station in Somerville, Georgia, and surrendered herself. She explained that she would have come forward earlier, but her boyfriend Wells had prevented her from doing so. Hudgens proceeded to provide the authorities with a detailed account of the events of that fateful night, including the identities of the perpetrators. Following her confession, the dots had been connected and a nationwide manhunt was initiated. Brock and West parted ways in Austin, Texas, after a heated argument about their plans. Brock surrendered to the police in Marietta, Georgia on December, and West was apprehended on Christmas Eve in Chattanooga, Tennessee. According to newspaper reports from the time, during the investigation of the murders, law enforcement officers discovered unsettling items at Corpsewood Manor. These included 2 human skulls, 3 vials allegedly containing lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD-25, various occult tools, a small occult library, a large collection of academic and literature books, and pornography. The Chattooga County Sheriff's Office labeled Scudder and Odom as devil worshippers, based on these findings. Additionally, a painting depicting Scudder gagged with blood dripping from 5 bullet wounds, which he had created months earlier, was found in the house. There had been previous attempts to bring charges against Dr. Scudder and Odom for their unconventional behavior, but these efforts failed due to protections provided by freedom of religion. Their friend Raymond William informed reporters that Charles had become involved with the Church of Satan. but clarified that he wasn't an active participant. "Scudder told me he was actually an atheist and that he joined to explore its beliefs," Raymond explained. Like many others in Chattooga County, Georgia, Raymond was unaware that the philosophy of the Church of Satan is atheistic, and its members may not necessarily worship any supernatural being. Just weeks before his death, Scudder had received a birthday card from the Church of Satan in San Francisco, wishing him a happy 56th birthday. During the trial of West and Brock, accusations were made against Scudder, alleging that he had spiked the wine with LSD in an attempt to engage in oral sex with them. However, when the police tested the bottle of wine, no trace of LSD was found. West attempted to use a defense of involuntary intoxication. His attorney argued he had a motive because he was homosexual. However, the jury disregarded this prejudiced line of argument. Additionally, West confessed to a Georgia Bureau of Investigation agent that he and Brock had planned the murders and robbery a few days prior to the killings. He further disclosed to the GBI agent that Brock wanted to kill Scudder because Scudder had previously engaged in oral sex with Brock. During the trial, Dr. Karchmar was also approached for an interview. During this interview, Karchmar affirmed that Scudder was not a drug user or a follower of devil worship, and that he was trustworthy. He further stated that, to his knowledge, Scudder had never conducted any research involving LSD and appeared to disapprove of drug usage. In an effort to conclude the ordeal, 17-year-old Avery Brock pleaded guilty to all charges and received 3 consecutive life sentences for his involvement in the murders. 30-year-old Tony West was convicted and initially sentenced to death, a penalty later commuted to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Both Brock and West are presently incarcerated in Georgia and have been denied parole on multiple occasions. It is unfortunate what happened to the victims in this case. As we reflect on this heart-wrenching tale, our thoughts are with the victims whose lives were tragically cut short and the loved ones they left behind. If you found this video compelling, be sure to drop a like and leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thank you for watching.